reInvent 2024. We are back at it. Today, we have a very special guest. If you don't recognize him, he was just doing an epic keynote talking about all the different innovation that AWS is doing in a very fast evolving space. But I'm not going to steal all the thunder and glory to talk about it. Let's hand it over to Todd and then our guest of honor, who I'm very excited to have on today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the stream. I am Todd Fortier. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at AWS, and I'm so excited to interview our special guest here, Dr. Swami. Welcome, or as he's very dearly known around the halls of AWS as just Swami. Welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right, so you just got off the stage for your keynote, an epic keynote as far as I'm concerned. I've watched your previous keynotes, and this one just so many announcements, so many huge hitting announcements.
Yeah.
Is there anything that really sticks out for you that you really want to kind of just double click on here for our audience?
It's like you're asking me to pick my favorite child, and in reality, I have only 2 kids and a puppy. So, but nonetheless, I would say, I mean, if you see the history of AWS, especially when it comes to Gen AI, we view it as more than just one model or one chatbot. So that's why our strategy has always been to invest in every layer of the stack, right from like the core infrastructure to Bedrock, our application developer platform, to also our Gen AI assistants like Q. But this reInvent, especially in my keynote, this is no different. You could see the amazing innovations we have done, right? Like if you saw how Luma and Autodesk talked about how SageMaker helped them actually move from like zero to doing amazing innovations using Hyperpod. That's like a groundbreaking, amazing capability. And we have added so many new things like flexible training plans and task governance and many more. Now, if you move on to the Bedrock layer, one of the key things is people don't realize is while there is like so much excitement around new models and everything, and Bedrock pioneered this whole notion of model choice is important to the entire industry when everybody said, all you need is my model, nothing else. It's a little bit like the old days of like relational databases where they said, oh, it doesn't matter what is your question, the answer is my database. But then AWS pioneered the way to say, you know what, the answer is it depends on your workflow, and we will provide you all the choices and pick the best. And that's what we did with Gen AI models. And this time we invested in continuing to improve our model choice by adding more models, right from Nova to Luma to also Poolside and many more. But also we added capabilities to help customers run inference at scale. Intelligent prompt routing is going to be like amazing because it is going to speed up the ability to now pick the right model for each of these use case, let alone actually model distillation is going to be like incredible. The ability to actually decrease your cost by 75% and latency by like 5x is like a game changer. And of course, all the data customization capabilities from GraphRag to Bedrock data automation to actually structured data retrieval in Bedrock knowledge bases. Things are going to, and then of course, my other favorite, the scientist in me loves the notion of automated reasoning checks. I don't know if you're familiar with what automated reasoning is. It is like a mathematical foundation-based system that can actually tell using like theorem proof that what it does is actually 100% accurate. Now, with Gen AI, one of the big challenges in the regulated industry they have is addressing hallucination. And now the combination of automated reasoning check with this is actually a big deal. And of course, Q, we have done so much innovation in this space. So when you think about like what we have done with Q Dev, we are completely working across every layer of the software development lifecycle, right from like dev to testing to actually ops, and let alone even amazingly hard problems like mainframe modernization and .NET, let alone business, what we are doing. But my personal favorite is actually the Education Equity Initiative that we launched. Because to me, I come from a very simple background. My generation, my brother and I are the first ever to go to college. So the ability to make education accessible, especially in the Gen AI era, is actually now more important than ever. So I know I gave a very long speech, but
no, there's so many things to kind of to touch on there. I love this concept. Something that really spoke to me in watching your keynotes is this concept of innovation convergence.
Yeah.
And I love that quote that you had on the screen from Edison. I start with the last person finish, and this is something that's resonated with me and the work that I do every day at AWS on the AWS Solutions Library. We tell our customers, hey, you don't have to start from scratch anymore. You can don't reinvent the wheel. We'll innovate on your behalf, and then from there you can continue that innovation. I can see that happening with some of our AI services like SageMaker. And you've been around. A lot of our audience might not know this, but you started off actually as an intern at AWS, and so you've seen that innovation happen firsthand. What's it like going from intern and writing? I think we said the PRFAQ for
the founder of
DynamoDB here, and then all the way now some of the new stuff that we're launching in SageMaker.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, it's been an amazing journey. That is, I would say, only possible in places like Amazon because we encourage risk-taking and innovation. But if you look at what you said about convergence, I always believe when we think about innovation, we always attribute to the end result, like that moment when you see that magical outcome. But what people don't realize is it takes like a lot of other things that happen before that. And you build upon actually the shoulders of other giants who came before us. And that's exactly kind of where we are in this moment, even personally. I mean, having worked on actually the core replication system in S3, to building Dynamo, to actually all our analytics, to actually also all things like including the ML in SageMaker and Bedrock and Q. I kind of feel like we are in the moment where now finally we are bringing together data, analytics, machine learning, and AI all together. And our customers are starting to see that too. That's why it's almost like I put together everything I worked on in a very unified studio experience. And I hope you get to showcase it live in air on how awesome it is.
Well, that's a big part of what we do is we get to bring on the builders who are building. So when I was watching the keynote, I'm saying, oh, this is all so great. There's so many tools that were coming out that make it easier.
Yeah.
But now let's go show customers how to use this. And this is why I love being a part of the stream is we get to do that.
We get to bring these builders on and then pepper them with questions and say, what's that button do? I feel like my daughter just like, what's that do? What's that do? What's this mean? What's that mean? And so you mentioned, providing the ability for individuals to be able to learn more about these generative AI technologies. And I think that highlights a very big importance because, like most of us that have been in a field for a long period of time, we kind of had to make it up and figure it out as we went. Yeah. And now there's making it more accessible for individuals that want to get into a career or also build cool widgets to transform how we do things in the future.
Yeah.
And so that barrier of adoption and being able to make it like more equitable for individuals is really something that's awesome. And I love to hear that we're doing that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our responsibility is not just to actually build upon what came before us to make the present better, but we also need to pave the way for the next wave of innovators. And this is, if you look at even what we have personally done in AWS, we changed how software industry worked. We actually made it, the ability to innovate faster is actually became a thing where we were able to move 10x faster. And that's what we want to do even for students so that they can actually take these transformative technologies and they don't have to make them accessible right in their early stages of their career.
Yeah, I love this. I just learned that we have something in common. You said you're the first, you and your brother, first to go to college. Yeah. My brother and I were the first to go to college in our family. And that was something I struggled with, having access to the technology in the mid-90s. I remember the first time I went online, I was like, oh my goodness. I had that same experience when I first used AWS Lambda. As a builder, from humble beginnings as a .NET developer to using AWS Lambda, I said, oh my goodness. And I feel like I'm on the verge of having that same feeling with generative AI and the tools that we're launching. Yeah. So as a builder, how can I get more use out of this? How should I be thinking about it? Because sometimes we think about the science of training these models. I'm like, okay, that's great, but then how do I use that stuff in my everyday?
I would encourage, as a builder first, I think you should get started with having Q in your IDE, and then actually, even if you have specific problem on, like, hey, you're trying to build, let's say, a chatbot to do like an assistant for your website to even build a leads. With even things like the Bedrock IDE in the SageMaker Studio, it actually already will start helping you get going. And this actually is going to be really accessible because now you can really test these models across multiple things and start building and wiring them with data lakes like sitting in S3. The ability to now put together applications, what it used to be like 5 years ago to what it is now, is actually like 10x faster. And we live in an amazing era where there is like a tectonic transformation shift. And there is no reason for us to not actually move faster anymore.
Yeah, and there's one announcement that you made that really brought that home for me, and that was the Bedrock data automation.
Yeah.
Right. I remember the architectures and what we had to do some of that extraction with our services like Textract and how much work we did. And now we have Bedrock data automation. We can do unstructured multimodal data extraction, just making it easier for our customers to do that and at scale and cheaper. And I imagine that pace of innovation is going to continue.
I think that is really true. When you think about the world where people were actually leveraging some of our AI services, but they were putting together all these ETL pipelines. Now, what we have done is we have brought together a bunch of the good models we have built with AI services and augmented with Gen AI models to do this with no code required. And I think that is going to be a game changer in actually making all enterprise data, irrespective of whether they are structured data or unstructured data, PDFs or images, video, all of them actually accessible.
It's like not making a data person have to learn how to do code to get this widget to work. It's just like, hey, we're doing all that lifting for you. So just continue being an awesome data person.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Make data decisions.
Yeah.
Well, it's a huge thing. Customers, I work with SMB customers all the way up to enterprise customers, and the big question is, how do I get my data to a point where I can get value out of some of these generative AI services? And the launches like Bedrock data automation, prompt caching, and all of these things that we're putting into stage here, Hyperpod, we've talked a lot about that this year, just continues to make it easier.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I would just say we're also just getting started. There is a lot more actually in this space and so much innovation to do. And the interesting fact is, if you see, there's so much we covered even in yesterday's keynote, and so much we have covered, and I still couldn't cover many other things we are doing within my keynote as well. So a lot happening in this one.
That's what we say. Always, one of the things I love, we always say it's always day one here at AWS. So the innovation, there's still so much more to come.
Yeah.
When you look at, I'm just going to kind of shift gears a little bit, because it's not every day we get to speak to someone that has such a tenured career at AWS at Amazon. 15 years ago, did you think we were going to be where we are at now? Just thinking about it.
Well, I heard a funny thing. I've heard that you like to read research papers on planes so that you can kind of get ideas. I love that. I always am browsing the magazine section, looking for the American journal, the American Science journals, and saying, okay, what can I? So yeah, did you think we would be where we are today?
That's a great question. I wish I could claim I had that much foresight, but the reality is, the thing that made AWS special is we always knew that we had a fundamentally different approach to think about how to build things. And we knew we were onto something. But I can tell you that during those early days, and Matt touched on it, when we were explaining to people like, hey, you don't need to, everything is an API, everything is programmable, you don't need disk, you can actually put it in S3. Now your database, you don't need to install software, it's available by API. It took a different mode of thinking. So initially, if you see the history of AWS, startups embraced us first because they loved the speed at which they can innovate. And then we went mainstream. What we didn't realize was the pace at which we were able to actually innovate in early days also drew so much adoption among these startups that they became like now big enterprises today. And then we all went mainstream, and cloud is the new normal. But the same thing is happening now in Gen AI. The pace of innovation is actually reminds me so much of early days of AWS. I kind of keep saying, like, you know what, now I actually had to do like what I used to do in the early days of AWS. So I get super hands-on and actually start doing that. And you got to actually stay close to the ground. So I still love reading papers and staying close to the ground, because that's the only way actually where we need to go, but also stay close to the customers too. So that's the other thing we do. Like I personally talk to at least like 3 to 4 customers every week.
That's awesome. And I wish we had more time, and maybe we could convince you to come back on in the near future. But hey, we got to send it off. And Swami, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks again.
We're going to try to find Nick somewhere on the expo floor. So stay tuned. Let's go find Nick wherever he might be. We let him out of his cage, and that's what happens.